Welcome to this deep dive with us, Sarah. And today we're going to get into the really interesting topic of dark matter. I know you've been looking into some articles about it
Yeah.
from Live Science and Sci News and American Scientist, all sorts of other places, even a blog post I saw on Medium. So it seems like you've been doing your research.
I have. It's really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and I think we're going to try to tackle kind of the biggest questions here, like what is dark matter, and what are some of the more recent theories about it, and then we're even going to touch on its potential connection to consciousness.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, get ready to have your mind blown a little bit.
I'm ready.
All right, so dark matter, it's kind of this, it really flips our understanding of the universe on its head, right?
It really does.
Because we're used to thinking about matter as something that, like, we can see and touch.
Right.
You know, something that interacts with light.
Yeah, interacts with light.
But dark matter doesn't play by those rules at all.
No, not at all.
So it's like the ultimate cosmic hide-and-seek champion. We can't see it directly, but there's all this evidence that it has to be there.
Yeah.
I noticed a few of the articles you sent. Sarah mentioned something called anomalies in the radial dependence of galactic rotational curves.
Yeah.
What in the world does that even mean?
Okay, so imagine you're watching a merry-go-round, right?
Okay.
And the horses on the outside, they have to be moving faster than the horses on the inside to keep up.
Right, because of the way the circle works.
Exactly, because of the circular motion, yeah. But when astronomers observe galaxies, they see stars on the outer edges moving way faster than they should based on the gravity of all the visible matter.
Huh. So it's like those outer stars are getting a secret speed boost from something we can't see.
Exactly. And that something is the gravitational pull of dark matter.
Okay.
It's like there's this invisible scaffolding holding galaxies together, preventing them from just spinning apart.
So that makes sense. And it's not just galaxy rotation, right?
Right.
The articles also mention something called gravitational lensing.
Right.
What's that all about?
So gravitational lensing happens when light from distant objects like galaxies bends around massive objects in its path. So think of it like looking through a magnifying glass. The light gets distorted and magnified.
Oh.
But sometimes we see lensing effects that are way stronger than they should be if we're just looking at the visible matter.
So again, it's like this invisible stuff is adding to the gravitational pull and bending the light even more.
Exactly. It's more evidence for the existence of dark matter, and from what we can tell, it makes up a whopping 85% of all the matter in the universe.
85%. That's crazy. So that means all the stuff that we can see, all the stars and planets and galaxies, that's just a tiny fraction of what's actually out there.
It's humbling, isn't it?
It really is. So
Yeah.
if we can't see it or touch it, how in the world do scientists even know what to look for?
Well, for a long time, the leading candidate was something called WIMPs, which stands for Weakly Interacting Massive Particles.
WIMPs?
Yeah, they're hypothetical particles that would only interact with regular matter through gravity and the weak force, which is why they're so hard to detect.
So kind of like ghosts passing through walls.
Yeah, exactly. But even after decades of searching, we haven't found any conclusive evidence of WIMPs. So scientists are exploring other possibilities, and one of the articles that you sent, Sarah, from Physical Review Letters really caught my eye. It proposes a totally new theory about the origin of dark matter.
Oh yeah, the research by Dr. Michael Baker and his team.
Yes.
I remember that one. Their idea involved something about expanding bubbles in the early universe.
Right, so picture the early universe like a pot of boiling water.
Okay.
As the universe rapidly cooled after the Big Bang, bubbles of a new phase would have formed and expanded, much like those bubbles in the boiling water. And Baker's theory suggests that dark matter particles had a really hard time entering these expanding bubbles.
So it's like they were bouncing off the bubble walls.
Yeah, exactly. As these bubbles merged, the dark matter particles that remained outside were more likely to annihilate each other, leaving behind only the particles that managed to get inside.
Okay, so the dark matter we observe today is basically the leftover stuff from this cosmic bubble bath.
That's the idea. And what's really interesting is that this theory works for heavier dark matter particles, which haven't really been the focus of most research. So it opens up a whole new avenue for looking for these things.
Okay, this is already blowing my mind.
It's pretty wild stuff.
So we have this invisible matter, potentially born from cosmic bubbles, shaping the structure of the universe. But a few of the articles you sent also go into something even more mind-boggling, which is the shape of the universe itself.
Yeah, the universe itself.
And it actually relates to your work in an office in a kind of a cool way, Sarah.
Oh, okay.
Imagine you're trying to map out the entire floor plan of your office building, but you can only see your own cubicle.
Oh, wow.
that's kind of what cosmologists are trying to do with the universe. They're trying to figure out its overall shape, even though we can only observe a small part of it.
That's a great analogy.
So instead of cubicles and hallways, are they looking for the cosmic equivalent? Like, is the universe a giant sphere or a cube or something even weirder?
Yeah, exactly. The American Scientist article you sent mentions something called 10 orientable Euclidean three-manifolds.
10?
I know. Potential shapes.
10 potential shapes that our universe could take.
That's fascinating and kind of overwhelming all at the same time.
It is, right?
Is there any way you can give us a simple way to visualize this?
Sure. So imagine the universe is like a video game world. You know, it might feel infinite as you're exploring it,
Okay.
but it actually has edges.
Okay.
And instead of just like abruptly ending these edges, loop back on themselves in different ways.
Okay.
And that's what these different three manifolds represent. They're different ways that the edges of the universe could connect back to themselves.
So the universe is basically one giant loop.
Kind of, yeah. And what's even more mind-boggling is that these are finite shapes, which kind of challenges our idea of an infinitely expanding universe.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. But how does the shape of the universe connect to dark matter? Well, understanding the universe's shape could help us understand how dark matter is distributed throughout it. Different shapes could lead to different patterns of dark matter clumping,
Okay.
and those patterns would affect the way galaxies form and evolve.
So it's like figuring out the layout of the universe's office could give us clues about where the dark matter furniture is placed.
Exactly, and this is where things get really, really fascinating because some of the articles you sent, Sarah, explore the idea that maybe this invisible furniture isn't just matter, but something even more profound.
Consciousness.
Consciousness. Whoa, hold on a second. We were already talking about invisible matter and the universe potentially being a giant looped video game, and now we're adding consciousness to the mix.
I know it's a wild concept, but it's one that some scientists are starting to take seriously. There's this idea called panpsychism, which suggests that consciousness isn't just something that emerges from complex brains like ours.
Right.
Instead, it's a fundamental property of the universe itself. So like every rock, every planet, even dark matter, they all possess some level of consciousness. I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
It's definitely a big shift in perspective. Remember how we talked about our understanding of the universe is constantly evolving? Like we used to think Earth was the center of everything, then we realized our planet orbits the sun, and then we discovered that our sun is just one of billions of stars in a vast galaxy.
All right, and that galaxy is just one of countless galaxies in the universe.
Exactly. So you're saying panpsychism is like the next step in that expansion of our understanding? It's like we're zooming instead of out this time, looking at the tiniest building blocks of reality and asking, what if consciousness is woven into those building blocks?
Okay, I'm intrigued, but I'm also a bit lost in the weeds here.
Yeah.
How does panpsychism actually connect to dark matter? I mean, one's about consciousness and the other's about invisible matter holding galaxies together.
Right, but remember, we can only infer the existence of dark matter through its gravitational effects. We still don't know what it's made of. What if, instead of some exotic unknown particle, dark matter is actually a manifestation of this fundamental consciousness field?
So instead of needing dark matter particles to explain the extra gravity, we could attribute it to the influence of this consciousness field. It's like the universe is thinking itself into existence.
In a way, yes, and it's not as out there as it might seem at first. The Medium article you shared mentions experiments that demonstrate something called the observer effect in quantum mechanics. The act of observation can actually influence the behavior of particles.
Oh yeah, like that famous double slit experiment. Particles act like waves until they're observed, and then suddenly they behave like particles. It's like they know they're being watched.
Exactly. That experiment, along with other findings in quantum mechanics, suggests that consciousness might play a more active role in shaping reality than we previously thought.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these ideas could connect. But what about dark energy, that mysterious force that's accelerating the expansion of the universe? Could panpsychism explain that too?
That's a great question. If consciousness is indeed a fundamental force, maybe even intertwined with the very fabric of space-time, then it could potentially be the driving force behind the universe's expansion.
So instead of some mysterious dark energy pushing everything apart, it could be the collective consciousness of the universe propelling its own growth, like the universe is choosing to expand to become more aware.
That's one way to think about it. The Medium article even suggests that the universe could be a self-aware entity, constantly evolving and expanding its own consciousness.
Wow, that's a pretty radical departure from the traditional view of a cold, different cosmos. It's almost like we're talking about a living, breathing universe. Is there any scientific evidence to support this idea of a conscious universe, or is it purely philosophical?
Well, it's still a very speculative idea, but there are some tantalizing hints. Remember those cooler stars that rotate faster than hotter ones? A phenomenon called Parenago's discontinuity. The Big Think article you sent mentions physicists Gregory Matloff and Bernard Heisch, who propose that this could be evidence of stars consciously manipulating their own motion.
Wait, conscious stars, that sounds like something out of science fiction. How do they explain that?
They suggest that stars might have a rudimentary form of consciousness, a kind of proto-consciousness field that allows them to interact with their surroundings in subtle ways. In the case of Parenago's discontinuity, they propose that cooler stars are somehow able to slow down their rotation by interacting with this field.
That's pretty wild, but I have to admit it's also kind of exciting to think that even stars might have some level of awareness. It makes you wonder what other secrets the universe might be hiding.
It certainly does, and that's what makes this whole exploration of dark matter so compelling. It's leading us to question our most fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality and the possibility that the universe might be far more complex and interconnected than we ever imagined.
This has definitely been a deep dive, and I'm not sure if I'm more amazed or confused. What do you think, Sarah? Are you starting to question everything you thought you know about the universe?
I think it's safe to say that we've only just begun to scratch the surface of these mysteries, but with each new discovery, each new theory, we're getting closer to a deeper understanding of the universe and our place within it.
Okay, so we've talked about dark matter potentially being a sign of a conscious universe. But if the universe is conscious, what does that even mean? Does it have thoughts, feelings, goals?
Those are great questions, and that's where things get really philosophical. So where were we? Oh, yeah, we were talking about if the universe is conscious, what does that even mean?
Yeah, does it have like thoughts and feelings and goals? Like, what does that even look like?
Right. It's really getting into some deep philosophical territory here.
Definitely.
But the Medium article you sent really kind of dives headfirst into these mind-bending ideas and connects this whole concept of a conscious universe to a bunch of different things, like ancient spiritual traditions and modern scientific ideas.
Yeah, I was super intrigued by that idea of consciousness recycling. Like, it suggests that consciousness is never really destroyed. It just transforms and gets reintegrated into this larger field of awareness.
Yeah, like matter and energy can't be created or destroyed, just transformed from one form to another.
Right, exactly. But instead of energy, we're talking about consciousness.
Exactly.
And the article even suggests that things like deja vu and near-death experiences could be like little glimpses into this recycling process where like fragments of consciousness from past experiences kind of reemerge in new and unexpected ways.
That's a really cool thought. It challenges us to think about consciousness as something bigger than just us as individuals. Like maybe there's this collective or universal consciousness that exists outside of our physical bodies.
So if we go with this idea of a conscious universe, you know, everything's interconnected. What does that mean for us, Sarah, and for all the listeners out there, you know, thinking about these big questions?
Well, it suggests that we're not just isolated beings. We're actually part of something much bigger, you know, an evolving whole.
Right.
Our thoughts, our actions, our very existence all contribute to the universe's story.
It's a pretty amazing perspective when you think about it.
It is. It's humbling.
It makes you realize that trying to understand something like dark matter can actually lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the grand scheme of things.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that the quest for knowledge isn't just about collecting facts. It's about expanding our awareness, deepening our connection to the mysteries of the universe, and ultimately discovering who we really are.
I love that. So listeners, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of dark matter, we want to leave you with one final thought to ponder: if consciousness does permeate the universe, could dark matter be the mind of the cosmos, shaping the galaxies, guiding the stars, and maybe even whispering secrets into our dreams? It's a question that might not be answered for a long time, but it's definitely a question worth asking. A question that sparks our curiosity and reminds us of all the amazing things that are out there in the universe. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey.